Good evening, everybody, and welcome. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council. It is Monday, December the 4th, 2023. Let's call this meeting in order. Invocation this evening, Cantor Lou Price, First Hebrew Congregation. Thank you again for coming out.
Again.
Yeah, again. Yes.
Again.
Just can't get rid of me.
That's good.
We know what the people like.
That's right.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai our God, who is one. As Rabbi Penzner's voice sounds from Boston, he defines its affirmation of oneness. The Shema has a universal message. The word Shema means listen, pay attention. Pay attention, there is a profound oneness that connects us all. Pay attention to the oneness when you feel alone and disconnected. That oneness is love. Pay attention to the oneness when you feel powerful and righteous. That oneness is wisdom. Pay attention to the oneness when insurmountable divisions prevent us from hearing one another. That oneness is compassion. Pay attention to the oneness when the only voice we hear is the one inside our own heads. That oneness is humility. We reach out, cry out to the one, the source, God with multitudes of names, and ask your help today. We are called at one time to be bold and at others to be humble. That is the oneness that we hold with tenderness and tenacity. The oneness of listening and being heard, the oneness that celebrates the humanity within each of us. May these humble and noble public servants recognize the power that is a gift to them, bestowed for a time by the citizens of this city, by the oneness, the Creator, the Source. May these noble and humble public servants have the mercy to listen with attention and curiosity to the voices of others on this council, opening their eyes to new ways of seeing and opening their hearts to new ways of being. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, the divine source of all who affirms life and demands justice and who seeks peace. Thank you.
Thank you again. Appreciate it. And now if you're able to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, Megan.
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Wendy Onuki. Joe Reeser.
Here.
Steve Schlack.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here.
I'll make a motion to excuse Wendy Ayuki.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to excuse Wendy Anuki. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. She is excused. At this point in time in the meeting, we are going to call our friend and the voice of our community, Mr. Paul Endecker. If he will come on up, we have a proclamation for you. We'd like to recognize you. So if you don't mind coming on up and sharing, sure, come to the podium right there. We can, that way they
Right
can
there,
show
yep.
you on the,
Camera can get you right there.
that way we can
Perfect.
show your smiling face. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you for everything you do in this community. Can't say that enough. You are the voice, and for so many years. And I know a lot of us, everyone, we see you all the time. We appreciate everything you do. So I will read through a little bit of this. I'm going to share it with my colleague to the left here. So whereas Paul Endecker is celebrating his 50th year in broadcasting and 27th year in Southwest Michigan, and whereas Paul is the voice of local radio to many, including myself in town, he is the Vice President of Content for Midwest Family and has been the host of the local Cozy Morning Show since 1996. And whereas Paul Endecker continues to be active in the community, he presently serves as the president of the board of the We Care Community Resource Center, served as the president and South Haven Kiwanis Club, and past chair of the Van Buren County United Way. And
Whereas Mr. Landecker has been recognized with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the South Haven Chamber of Commerce, as well as Citizen of the Year Award from the South Haven Rotary Club for giving much of his personal time to the community efforts such as the annual participation in the Rotary Club Fly-In Pancake Breakfast, the Bobby Walker Basketball Tournament, We Care Island Sit, Light Up the Lake, and Lake Annual Fireworks Display on July 3rd, and much more. Whereas Mr. Landecker is a member of the South Havens Peace Lutheran Church and loves to spend time with his wife, Ann, 5 grown children, and 10 grandchildren. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of South Haven wishes to recognize Paul Landecker and express appreciation for his ongoing service to the community. Your inspiring leadership, positive voice, and contributions to the community have helped to make it a better place to live, work, and play. Signed, Mayor Scott Smith, City of South Haven, presented on the second day of December 2023. There's a typo there that got me.
May I speak?
You may, absolutely, please do.
It'll be brief, but I'll tell you that the last 29 years of my life have been amazing in this place. Having raised 3 kids here through an amazing school system and just a great place to work, grow, love, and live. It continues to be that place to me today. And Annie and I, my lovely wife of 20 years, we have no plans of going anywhere anytime soon. People keep asking, when are you going to retire? Well, if I were to do that, I think I would probably want to stay involved in radio and in the community because that's what I love the most. That's the thing that I think God put me here for and that I was called to water, interestingly enough. So I look around the room and I see so many friends and acquaintances that we've worked with in so many committees and organizations through the years, and I'm the one that's blessed by you and the community, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Thanks again, Paul. All right. That takes us to the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Next, we have public comment for items on the agenda, excluding items which are scheduled for public hearing, which are none. So if you'd like to discuss any of the items on the agenda this evening, come on up, state your name and address. You'll have up to 5 minutes, and we'd love to hear what you got to say. Good evening, Mary.
Good evening. Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. The agenda packet went from 121 pages that was issued on November 29th to 300 pages that came out about 5 p.m. on Friday. We are given a mere 5 minutes to address several matters. This is what I say here is just the tip of the iceberg of what I've submitted in writing. Such significant changes in the matter of a few days place not only a huge burden on elected officials, but residents to try and prepare to hold productive, probative discussions. The residents deserve full discussion on matters that have long-term effects on our community and fiscal responsibilities with complete and accurate documents as part of the agenda packet. I would first request that consent agenda items 8, F, and G be removed to have a discussion. As I've indicated, The economic development of our city should require any consultant staying overnight to stay in an establishment within our city boundaries. That is how we help our local businesses have more people stay in their locations. As long as there's no vacancies, there's not a reason our consultant shouldn't stay there. We have a newly elected council to be sworn in on January 2nd, and at least I and Mayor-elect Brown have both gone on the record of indicating that we would like a full-time economic development person. Therefore, the contract should be, it's recommended that the contract be extended only for 6 months, not 1 year, and that is actually even considered as part of the original contract. Agenda item 12, STR amendments. There are currently only 471 issued, and the cap is said to be 497. As discussed in great length, it should be lower than the 497, but I think we need to take into consideration things that have been going on in the last several months. Amendments that have been proposed do not address concerns that citizens have been raising for quite some time. I would urge the City Council to be transparent. The City Council, not city staff, hold the waiver to allow the privileged legal memo and the closed session minutes that were mentioned from the interviews with regard to the attorney who provided that. And we would request that those be brought out so that we can all see and have all the cards on the table and move ahead together. Agenda item 13, the solar project. Soul America's application is due December 15th. This has been an ongoing since probably late August, early September at the latest. I would like to know what have been the issues and what has been resolved over these last 3 months, and why is it just coming to us now? I would like to understand what the expenses to consumers are expected to be. The contract rate is for a full 25 years, and how accurate is that to be for 25 years? What is the expected cost to us, the end consumers? What is the expected expense for the city's interconnection facilities that are excluded from the definition of the solar project and therefore would be borne by the city? How will this affect current rates with our current provider if we purchase less once the solar energy begins? And how is that affected if the nuclear power plant comes back online? The power purchase agreement has some terms that are not defined, leading to vagueness. Several occurrences of error reference not found, so we don't know what's being referenced. There's 4 references to section 0, which does not exist. Buyer is defined as the city, but separately the city is defined as the distributor provider. So I'm not sure how that will play out. There's also lacks of flexibility for the city. There does not appear to be any flexibility for the city to terminate on its own will. And the city has no say in the purchaser other than to outbid it under Article 4 for a person wanting to buy it. There are no criteria for how well the person would be operating. It's only required that they have 3 years' experience. Article 4 also potentially results in the city becoming the owner. How long do solar panels last, and is that about the time that the expenses would be increased and borne by the residents? Last, item 14 for the general legal services. City Charter Section 4.13 reads, in part, such legal counsel shall serve at the will of and the responsibility solely to the council. With the new elected council, I would urge that this council adjourn that decision for the newly elected council to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
David Veenstra, 1220 Monroe Boulevard. I'd like to speak to agenda item 12, I believe it is, the short-term rentals. I'd like to encourage the council to delay action on any of that right now until we get the new mayor and the new council in place. I was particularly taken back by the item on page 155. It talks about deleting, it sounds to me like deleting the parking restriction, and I remember zero conversation about that among council. So I think there's some things that need to be considered before we just send that along and rubber stamp. But I think we need to wait for the new council for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Annie Brown, 114 Michigan Avenue. In Mary Hasley's memo to City Council, She requested that the minutes from a closed session meeting and the legal memo from the attorney be shared with the public. But as you know, minutes from a closed meeting cannot be shared. They are exempt from the Open Meetings Act and can only be disclosed if required by a court order in a civil action. In addition, a written opinion by a city attorney is permitted in a closed session under the Freedom of Information Act. As you know, the Open Meetings Act is not a suggestion, it is the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Lorsdorfer, 23 Delaware. In regards to item number 12 on the short-term rentals, the information that was provided in the packet only looked at some issues. One thing that was not included was the petition that was signed by 422 residents that's made several suggestions to changes in the short-term rentals. I think that the city council should wait until next year, but they need to gather more information and input from the citizens on this issue, but it certainly should include the petition that was submitted to the city council this past year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Aaron Cobb, 914 Center Street. And I have kind of a question. Should all short-term rentals be characterized as the same? And should all short-term rentals be charged the same fee? And another thing, should that be, I think, in my opinion, the residents of South Haven should have an opportunity to get a business permit. It should be like business permit in escrow or something like escrow for the residents of South Haven, because as I asked questions, nobody gave me an answer yet. How many residents of South Haven that own short-term rental compared to out of state and people that don't live here? And the reason I say I don't think all of them should be characterized the same, because the place I'm trying to do a short-term rental, I got a residential permit, but I had people want to rent. I couldn't rent no more, and I have a lot of capital tied up in it. I can't get the capital out like that. And my place is a business. It won't be no problem for parking. Won't be no problem for none of that. And I don't think I should be characterized with all the other short-term rentals. What I've been hearing, that parking, loud music, loud noise, and all that stuff is what all the complaints was. A lot of the complaints was about. Complaints won't be about that there. So I'm just asking the question, should all short-term rentals be characterized the same?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, they are not. I mean, we have a business class, and then we have what we call personal. So we have a delineation already, and they pay a different fee structure. They're managed differently.
I understand that. That's what I'm not saying. Well, my short-term rental, I have a store on one side and the short-term rental on the other side. It's a business there anyway. It could be ran all the time anyway. So I should be eligible for a business permit, in my opinion. Y'all think about it. I'm just asking the question for conscience sake.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate your comment.
Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. Good evening,
Good evening.
Councilman. I just want to quickly talk to the item 12 that I think we should put off until the new council has been put in, seated, sworn in and seated. That item and that issue with short-term rental is very important to a lot of residents in this area. I don't think, I think it was something they just put on the agenda in the last hour, basically. And it didn't address a lot of the things that we discussed, at least the council discussed, about attrition. Once you reach a certain number, do we continue to issue? If we drop below that number, or do, if someone don't want a short-term rental, do we take that number out of the pool and don't issue anymore? So to try to drive it down through attrition, nobody get hurt that way. I don't think that was included in the package either. So I think we should wait and have that discussion once the new council persons are seated and the new mayor. I agree. I want to say I certainly appreciate councilperson-elect Mary Hosier. I think she is very detailed, and I think that's what the board will benefit from having her on council, because she's very much into detail, and I can appreciate that. And I believe she stood up here and said something that she did her homework, and I support and stand by what she stated on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to touch the microphone because last time I messed it up, but Dan Agnello, 964 Everett Parkway. I agree with what has been said so far on item 12. This item was added the last minute, and it should not be on the agenda because there are, as Reverend Bishop Joe said, and a lot of other people, there's a lot of things missing on there that the residents wanted, and there's a lot of misinformation on there, like was discussed. We're supposed to have a limit, but I believe Joe was the one that brought up that one of the meetings that we need to reduce that by attrition. None of that was addressed there, okay? Personal STRs, it said, you've seen this in my email, personal STRs were supposed to be only supposedly to residents. But as you've probably all seen from emails going around for the last couple of years, there's people that own 7 or 8, 9, 10 properties in town, and they're all declaring PREs because they've got the resident in different names, LLCs, me and my wife and my sister-in-law, whatever. And so that may work. But the thing is, you have to also limit personal STRs. If you're going to limit business ones, it won't do you any good because, like we said before, anybody can turn around and get a personal STR. So we're going to have 471 business STRs, but we're going to have 900 personal STRs. So we haven't solved the problem, okay? So that's just one of the many items. You've seen other items I had in my email. But table this. Our mayor-elect, 2 of her 4 items she had on her agenda, I just looked at the paper today, one of your ads, was number 1, help senior citizens. I'm a senior citizen. Number 4 item on there was reduce STRs or take care of STRs, okay? So for that reason, for other reasons, the new council should take care of the STR problem, not this council. So I would say reject it from your action. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Good evening.
Good evening. Andrea Hall, 410 River Island Drive. I'm here to talk about item number 11, which is the existing moratorium on floating homes. I'm asking that the council consider that allowing that to happen for another 6 months since nothing's happened in the city. There's been no meetings on it since then. And since the moratorium was put in place, another houseboat has been put in. So I expect more if we don't continue the moratorium.
Will do. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm Lisa Croupiers, 561 Indiana. I support what Mary Hosley proposed, the several items, 12, 13, and 14, shelved until after the first of the year when we have the new council in place. I could say more about how things have been timed to be presented, but I won't, and I think this was an intended thing to get in before the new council is seated, and especially about the STRs. So I strongly would want to have that wait. I just had some notes from the last time we talked about this here at council, and I shelved them because I knew this was going to come up again. But 2 of the things, the first 2 things at the top of my list are the backlog. When the city staff was having so much trouble, and we all thought they were issuing new permits after March 1st. And the excuse was there was such a backlog that they couldn't keep up. So if there's a backlog, that means we cannot implement the broken program that's already in existence. And that says we have too many rentals. The other issue that was addressed was the inspections. They were talking about we have 775 inspections a year. And the officer, one of the officers that does the inspections was here. We're talking about reducing them to maybe every other year. Instead of talking about switching inspections to every 2 years, we need to reduce the number of rentals, not cut corners and make inspections less frequent. We are talking the same thing over and over again. We have too many rentals. That's why we can't keep up with this. And a couple of personal things. I know one of the things that was mentioned in the document that was included was that the language has been confusing since the 2016, 17, 18. There's language that's confusing. And so I would imagine one of these couple things that I'm next mentioning are included in that. Certificates state that the certificate does not transfer with the property. And continually, the certificates are transferred when the property changes owners, changes whatever. Those certificates are transferred, and I don't get why, I don't get that. So maybe that's part of the confusing language, but that is a big issue. Many of us question that. This has come up a lot, property rights versus ordinance, property rights and use and land use versus ordinance compliance. I understand property rights. If you are living in a city where ordinance take precedence over property rights and land use, I would think the ordinance is what takes precedence. Now, I might be wrong about that. Joey Andrews said that Michigan has some of the strongest property use and land use rights, property rights and land use rights in the country. So I'm not going to dabble with that one, but the way my mind works, I think if there's an ordinance, that's going to take precedence. Certificates in the windows, yes, please keep the certificates in the windows. We need them. We need them. Southwest downtown, so the city is divided into, I believe, 6 parcels. Southwest downtown still has a 1 rental per 2 resident homes. The ratio is supposed to be 1 rental per 4 resident homes. If you can't fix anything, fix the Southwest downtown. We could start attrition there. That'd be so great because we are overwhelmed in Southwest downtown. No, I will not jump on that. I was going to say something to follow up Aaron Cobb's. The cap is too high. It's higher than any of the other beach towns along the lake. We have heard that time and time again. 497, whatever that is, it's way too high. Inspect less often. So I will say, my time's up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Sold, bless you. I take us to the consent agenda, items A through H.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve consent agenda items A through H. Discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call.
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. That takes us to new business. City Council will be asked to consider the approval of a special event application amendment for the New Year's Eve 2023 event to add a mobile zip line ride to their approved event application.
I make a motion to approve the amendment to the special event application amendment for New Year's Eve on 2023 to add a mobile zip line to their approved event.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Ta-da.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We do have Lori from the Visitors Bureau, but if you have any questions, we can bring her on up. But this is the CVB that's looking to add an additional element to the New Year's Eve celebration. They are looking to bring a vertical edge zip line. So when they first brought this to us, we got together with city staff and really worked out all the ins and outs and different things that we had questions on. What we have worked out with them is that this would come in around 3 p.m. The streets would already be closed, and it would run until about 10 p.m. so they could have time to take it down and get out of there when the streets open up shortly after the beach balls drop and whatnot. Staff are satisfied with their insurance liability, as well as the positioning on the road. So we're very happy with that. So if there's any questions from council, I'm here to answer, as well as Lori.
It looks like the same type of thing we've had here for Harbor Fest.
It is something similar. I'm not sure if they actually did get their one from Harbor Fest, but I know it has been proposed. This would be something new coming to New Year's Eve, and I think they're adding one more element, so it looks
More for
pretty
kids
neat.
to do.
That's right.
Yeah. And the legal issue has been addressed, the liability, that was my biggest concern. Is Lori going to be on the zip line? Okay, there you go. That wasn't a no. All right, we'll take that. All right, any other questions? Nothing. Thanks again for all the work you do to put into this. So, all right, we've got a motion, we've got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. All right, City Council will be asked to introduce the Plan Unit Development application for Frank and Monica Mididari regarding property at 1 North Bailey Avenue. Review and discuss the attached information and set a public hearing on this topic to occur at the City Council's regular meeting on December the 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
I'll make a motion to introduce the PUD as read by the mayor.
Second.
All right, we got a motion, we got a second. Griffin's here, the Mididaris are here. Let's talk.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to bring this before you. Yes, Frank and Monica Mididari are here this evening regarding their PUD application for property located at 1 North Bailey Avenue. The application is proposing a site condo on the newly formed 0.46 acre lot located in the B3 Waterfront Business District. It's a newly formed lot because of a recent combination of two properties, formerly 1 Bailey Avenue and 9 Bailey Avenue. When the applicants approached the city originally with the intent of creating a site condo on the subject property, it was shared with them that the mixed-use PUD provision in the existing zoning ordinance was the permissible path to accomplish that type of development. The intent was to build 3 new dwelling units on the property. The applicant seeking waivers from various provisions of the zoning ordinance, including front yard setback, building height, specifically the story requirement, curb cut, sidewalk requirement, as well as exceeding the maximum number of dwelling units on a parcel that's less than 0.5 acres in size. The Planning Commission first conducted a preliminary review of this application in June, and then final review with the required public hearing in November. The Planning Commission ultimately voted 8-0 with 1 member absent to recommend the item to City Council with a number of conditions listed in the staff report. This evening, it's just being asked for City Council to consider an introduction of this. If so, it would be brought back at the next meeting for public hearing and consideration. I'm happy to do the best I can to answer any questions, and we do have the applicants here if there are any questions for them.
Sounds good. Any questions of this group? No? You all look great, so I think if we've got no questions, all right. That was easy. We've got a motion, we've got a second to introduce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. See you at the next meeting. Thanks for coming out. All right. City Council may ask to consider the approval of Resolution 2023-34, which is a resolution to extend the existing moratorium on the development of floating homes for up to an additional 6 months to allow the Harbor Commission, Planning Commission, City Council to review and consider the adoption of the proposed ordinances before the moratorium expires.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-34, a resolution to extend the existing moratorium on development of floating homes for up to an additional 6 months to allow Harbor Commission, Planning Commission, City Council to review and consider the adoption of the proposed ordinances before the moratorium expires.
Second.
Motion and a second. Griffin again.
Thank you. Yes. So in June, as many of you will recall, the City Council adopted a resolution to impose a 6-month moratorium on the development of floating homes in the city of South Haven to allow time for the development and implementation of appropriate regulations. Over the last 6 months, a number of actions or a number of things have taken place that we would like to update you on. They are listed in the packet, so I'll do the best I can to be short, and if you have questions, we'll do the best we can to answer those. But first, a number of correspondence back and forth with both state elected officials and agencies related to the current potential future state regulations of floating homes. The really short version is we found some inconsistencies in how regulatory industries at the state, one of them being LARA, the other being the Department of State, are regulating these that we needed to work through before we could bring anything before you all. Secondly, significant research was done in regard to how other communities are regulating floating homes. Again, as a friendly note, at this point in time, there are very few municipalities in the state of Michigan who have regulations that have made this quite challenging, but we have been able to find how some regulate these in other states, such as Washington and Florida, where it's a little more common. 3, there is ongoing litigation and negotiating regarding a possible violation of the moratorium. We heard from a member of the public earlier about a third floating home being added during the time that this moratorium was in place. And then lastly, the preparation of draft ordinance language. That includes both amendments to the zoning ordinance and a new regulatory ordinance chapter. Both of those are included in the packet today. We're happy to discuss, but more for your reference, just to see that we are making progress. Now that we do have those draft ordinance in place, and really the crux of why we're before you this evening is if the moratorium is not extended, it is set to expire this week, but we are anticipating that it's still going to take several months to bring the draft ordinance language before the Harbor Commission, the Planning Commission, and ultimately back to the City Council for review and consideration. And because there are several items, that's likely going to take some time, so an extension of this moratorium would preserve the status quo as we continue to make progress. Nick, the city attorney, is here this evening. He's been helpful throughout this process. We're happy to answer any questions there may be. Again, we're sorry we're not able to move this any faster. We're working on it as diligently as we can with the other items we have before us. It has proved to be kind of more complicated at every step we seem to find.
Makes sense to me. I mean, we're not ready to move forward, so if there are no other questions of this group, nothing. All right, we've got a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2023-34. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's no. 1 no. Very good. Thank you. Next, City Council will be asked to discuss and provide direction regarding potential changes to the city's short-term rental ordinances. So I think maybe just for clarification, this is just a discussion. We're not looking to make any wholesale. This is just, again,
This is a continuation of what we started on August 21st. You asked us several questions, we gave you some guidance, and
That's correct.
you're bringing it back to us.
yeah, so this is by no means meant to, we're not going to make any wholesale changes tonight. It's just to continue that discussion. There will be further discussion after January 1st. So, you want to start this discussion?
Yes, I will. So that's exactly what this is just trying to figure out, are we on the right path of where we started in August? There was some discussion on a hard cap versus a ratio, so we have captured the hard cap in here. We've put in the placeholder a number of 497. I know that a couple different numbers were talked about, I think 500, 250. But really, we put in the 497 because that's the number of permits that we allowed for this year. I did, however, also put in a chart that kind of shows where we are at currently as of, I think, the 28th, and where staff anticipates us to be at the end of the year, which is, I think, is a difference of 1. It does show that we have seen a number of non-exempt business permits fall off this year. So instead of being at around 497, we are at 471. We anticipate 1 more to fall off. That does leave a delta. So, if next year starts there and we have not modified things, there is that ratio that's still in effect, and that would be a number of permits that would be issued next year. But just saying all that to preface, we've set the 497. If that number is different, that's a good feedback from council to give to staff, understanding that, I'm not sure if anyone wants to just give us their feedback on what they've seen tonight, or if they want to, leave this for the next council to dig into, as a number of you will be returning in January to start the conversation again. We did also incorporate the personal STRs to have the principal residence. If that, again, is not something that you're looking for, just let us know, because we're looking for direction. Now, if this council decides that, again, that's not the direction, that's fine, or if they want to just wholesale just say, hey, we'll talk about this in next year, that's perfectly fine. And we also included a few other items to allow city council to set the frequency of short-term rental inspections by resolution, thereby making it more flexible rather than having it in the ordinance. It was going to clarify certain portions in the ordinance that some have found confusing. We also had suggested in there something about the permits not being in the window. That was something that was talked about. So again, we're just putting out there a number of items to see if we are on the right track of where council and staff talked in August, and kind of get your feedback on that.
Okay, sounds good. Do you want to take them by topic so we can try to work through and just see if people want to comment? I mean, if that sounds fair to this group, or unless someone wants to kind of like topic by topic. I think it's kind of a large list, so what you got?
No, I'm happy. I had a question about the parking, but if we want to go item by item.
I mean, at least you just
About the
get a
parking, that was something we just threw in there to see what the conversation started to be. Now, that is not like an indication one way or another where anyone wants to land. It was really a conversation piece. So I'm going to guess that in talking with some of you today, that they would like to see something far more scaled back that addresses some of the other inconsistencies in our zoning ordinance, such as that parking is not necessarily designed in the residential zones, or that what defines on-premise or adjacent parking. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. If you want to work down the list, I'm game.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the groups, I mean, just sort of just get some thoughts or see if where we're at. I feel like we did this, and I thought we had pretty good consensus on the one. But let's see where we're at tonight, and after that gives you some guidance, and then when we do it again in January. So.
All right. Well, I guess we'll start with the first one. We had moved away from the ratio to the hard cap. Is that still where everyone is liking to land? Okay. So we're there. That's good. That's a good, easy one. Secondly, the number right now that we're postulating is 497. Is that where council is looking to be? Or do you want to be higher? Do you want to be lower? Or do you want to be at 497?
That'd be my minimum, or the maximum. I'd like to see it lower, but that's my jumping off point.
Okay.
I'd say that's a good number for now, and then in January, we'll get the annual report. We'll see what that number would change to under the existing ordinance, and then we'll make a call then on what to, I mean, we can hold off on changing that number till later on, till we get a little more details, but.
Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the big issue is we have residents on one side concerned about short-term rentals and the numbers and all the issues surrounding it. And we had one discussion about it August 21st. I went back last night and played it back twice. There seemed to be a little confusion, and today, sitting here right now, it's hard to say I can support or not support what was discussed August 21st, because I think some opinions have changed. There was a little confusion, and I think we need to start from scratch with all of it. And I think we should do that when we have a new mayor and a new city council person, because the people that are being elected into office starting the first of the year are going to live with this for years, as well as the residents. So why not let them have a say in it? So while I appreciate finally August 21st to have a discussion about it, I don't think it's resolved, and I think there's some loose ends. And one thing I surely don't want is any of this to go down to planning, and I don't think that's your intent, Kate, to go down to planning until we all come up with more of an agreement. So I don't see any reason to rush into any of this and push it off. Let's just put it off till the first of the year with a new mayor and a new council. That's my opinion.
I agree with Councilman Reeser. we should just table it till the first of the year.
Don't like kicking it down the can. We're accused of that all the time. I don't like kicking it down the can, or kicking the can down the road, I should say. And, you know, we just got a term limit and someone that chose not to run. We're all duly elected, but I'm just one vote.
Yeah, I guess I feel like I think most of us, for the last meeting, did our homework. We knew what was being discussed. The variables haven't changed. We know what the hard cap, we know what the ratio was. At the end of the day, previous council agreed to a ratio, and we were discussing changing it before we even hit the top of that ratio. So we moved back to a hard cap. I'm game to do that. And I feel like, I think 497, I think, as Jeff pointed out, would probably be that top, and maybe it's somewhere between that 470, 497, but at this point in time, it's going to roll over January 1. We'll issue those, whoever's pending, and then that can be a discussion for the new council.
Yeah, I think we're not here tonight to call a vote on anything, so I think I've been hearing for 2 years that we're not doing anything. Now I'm hearing slow down, stop, whoa, so it's kind of ironic. I think staff is just asking for directions. I think we tell them how we feel at this time. I agree with Joe. It's probably the way to go, but at least those of you that are coming back, ask staff if they need to hear anything.
One meeting closer to getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay. Next.
Scott, if we're going to discuss what was previously discussed August 21st, then I'd like to make a statement because my opinion on a couple pieces of this have changed. Can we do that now?
We're going one by one.
Yeah, we're going one by one. Maybe state it as we hit it.
Did anything change for you on the cap number?
On the cap number, no.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, on the cap number, we said it's going to be a hard cap, not a moving cap. That I agree with.
Okay.
The actual number, though, I'd like to change. I said originally I wasn't going to give a number because I thought the market could determine how many we could bring down through attrition, because I do believe in attrition. If I'm going to give a number, my number's 400, which I did not say last time. So that's my number through attrition. But the starting number is still right where we're at, and that's going to be a hard number. So attrition will bring it down, and George said, let's have a number, how low, and I didn't give a number, so it's 400. But I do believe in attrition bringing it down.
Okay. Next one.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't think.
Okay. The second thing is, we did not include parking before. I do know that, George, when you and I talked, there was some concerns that you had voiced about other ways to address this with the zoning ordinance. Did you want to restate those?
So I guess my concern is I would rather not get rid of any parking requirements associated with business short-term rentals. And through the staff report, it says there are some challenges from the parking standards associated with business short-term rentals. I would like to see if there's other ways we can change our ordinance to address some of those challenges without totally eliminating the parking requirements associated with business short-term rentals, because I see that as one of the items that is particularly difficult for people living near a short-term rental to live with, is if you have a business short-term rental that doesn't have adequate parking. And so I'm definitely not in favor of and getting rid of any kind of requirements associated with parking for business short-term rentals. And I'm also worried about going forward encouraging new business short-term rentals that don't have adequate parking. It's one thing if you've got legally non-conforming properties and that have had this situation for a while. It's one thing to have a brand-new property and all of a sudden, because we no longer have any regulations for parking for business short-term rentals, now someone decides they're going to try to maximize the capacity, although capacity would be limited to 12, try to not include any parking for their proposed business short-term rental.
Okay, I would tend to.
I tend to agree, yep. We want to keep parking requirements in place, and then we need to continue to look at the problems George described.
I think
I
going
agree with
forward,
George
it's gonna
also.
boil down to a legal opinion and legal advice for the current non-conforming ones, and anything come new, depending what happens with, the cap and everything else. So I think it all boils down to the legal matter.
Yeah, I definitely agree on a going forward basis. I think there may be some outliers that need to be addressed. It's going to be another kind of discussion, again, as Steve said, with legal to make sure we get those addressed, because we can't just keep those hanging out there. I think we all know that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, if there was no other comments on that one, require newly registered personal STRs to be the principal residence of the owner. When we talked in August, there was kind of a split from council about whether to require those. That requirement with new personal STRs is to basically ask if they are the principal residence owner. And that was, like I said, a bit of a split. So we put that in there to require that. Where is that falling with the council?
I'm okay with that.
I would also like that to continue.
I think we created them for hardships, and that was the case we heard. I think that's fair. Also think you might need to look at capping them at some point in time.
Okay. All right. We did also talk about eliminating the temporary hardship waiver provisions in section 1743 of the zoning ordinance. It's never been used and is very difficult to qualify for. So since that's been in place since, I think, 2018, it has never been used. So we opted to strike that. Just wondering if there's any strong feelings about that.
Simplifies our ordinance, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, no strong feelings on it.
Move it.
Okay. 5, modify a registration application requirements to eliminate unnecessary items and to require additional items that staff considers useful in the administration of the program. With that, I believe that we were talking about, Nick, can you help me out with this one? Yeah, let me pull up the red line here. Do you have your microphone on?
I'm going to turn to the red line here and find the exact items, and these were requested by the zoning department. Let me see.
I think it's 158 and 159, maybe.
Page 158, I think it's 168. No, you're right. Okay. So there's some current requirements about certifying the number of units in the dwelling as a whole, and zoning department reported that that's difficult for applicants who are in large complexes who are doing short-term rentals. Also indicated the zoning department doesn't do anything with that information. So just indicating what type of dwelling it is will basically serve the same function, whether it's single-family, multifamily, as opposed to specifying the exact number of rooms in the dwelling as a whole. Zoning department would consider sufficient. Building department is requesting adding a requirement for a working fire extinguisher in addition to the smoke alarm and the carbon monoxide detector. There's been some, I guess, confusion or difference of opinion as to whether the good renter policy should actually be physically provided in the home, or whether it's permissible or a good policy to allow the local agents to provide that by email to occupants. A lot of them say they provide it by email and don't have a physical copy in the home. This would clarify that it needs to be provided in some way in the home, but that a QR code would be acceptable. So basically a compromise between providing it digitally and providing it in hard copy in the home. And then finally, there's been the city's practice has been to require a certificate of occupancy whenever there's a very recently constructed dwelling, rather than allowing people to apply while they're building a new home. And this would expressly state that in the ordinance, as opposed to that requirements come from interpretation of prior language, but there was never an explicit statement in the ordinance that was required. So those would be the changes to the registration application process.
Seemed pretty clear. Something administrative at the staff level should be able to be done personally, so.
Yeah, administratively, if you are part of a condo development, you don't necessarily know the number of units in your building that are STRs. So that's one of the reasons why we looked at that. The certificate of occupancy has just been an internal policy that unless, there's an occupancy for a structure, we're not taking STR applications for it. And we did have 2 that were taken erroneously. Those have been refunded. But that has been the longstanding position of the city since 2018. It'd be probably smart to codify that. And then, of course, we talked about the physical copy of the Good Neighbor Guide. We have a Good Neighbor Guide that is online, and of course, we have provided that. But some people have asked, do they need to have that since everything is so digital these days? Or is it best to have just a physical or an electronic copy that is emailed? So those are just some things to think about. So. If there's no
I just
thoughts
say as
on
long as
that.
they got a way to verify they got it electronically. Most people are using their phones anyway. They don't know what to do with paper, so I make it electronically available. Just saying, my kids wouldn't look at it. They'd be like, so a lot of young people are renting. So comments, thoughts?
I'm good with the proposed changes for this one.
Same, I'd like to continue.
Yeah, I think it cleans up a couple things. Looks good.
Okay. 6 was to eliminate provisions in the city code that would allow maximum occupancy to increase to more than 16 occupants. Those are for residences that are not in the R1. Those, I believe, are for the R2 and RM1 zoning districts. But there's a list of things to accomplish to get that additional occupancy, some of them being sprinklers and other things. That has never been applied for. And it was suggested at the time in 2018, so no one has taken advantage of it.
And then no one can go above,
I'm sorry?
Then no one can go above 16, yep.
Right. There was provisions in there to get that additional occupancy, but no one has applied for that, so.
It's a section that's never been used. It's going to simplify our ordinance. I'm good with getting rid of it.
Okay.
I'd say remove it.
Okay. 7 was to allow for the city council to set the frequency of short-term rental inspections by resolution. That is something we've talked about is, do you if you've had successive inspections that have come out as don't have to re-inspect, that they've gotten everything done, it's a satisfactory inspection, do you reward that with just saying, well, you don't have to re-inspect next year because you've been so consistent with having that done? Right now, the ordinance sets when the resolutions can happen. What this would do is set that by resolution, so it's easier for council to adjust that need based on what you're finding with the inspections, and to, so if you want to say for every good inspection you have a 1 year that you don't have to re-inspect, it gives council some flexibility to set that rather than modifying the entire ordinance.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. In addition, I see the fees are also going to be set by resolution, which I'm in favor of. On page 159, though, it talks about, it's got a statement here, further the fees for short-term rental business units shall be in amounts reasonably sufficient to offset the cost of administrating the city's short-term rental regulatory program as a whole, while the fees for short-term rental personal units shall be in amounts intended to cover the cost of inspection only. And I was wondering why we wouldn't want each program to cover the cost itself, so that one program is not necessarily subsidizing another program. Was there a reason why that statement was added?
So that statement actually wasn't added in this ordinance. That comes from the 2018 ordinance, but it's historically been in the zoning ordinance, which has made it hard for people to find. So what we did here was just move the language pertaining to fees from the zoning ordinance to here, because this is a section that addresses fees. The rationale for that, and this is why the permit fees for personal are so much lower than they are for business. The rationale of the 2018 council was that business short-term rentals kind of drive the bulk of the cost of the program in terms of responding to complaints and things like that. And I think it's basically an express subsidy of one to the other built into the ordinance to make sure that the fees are reasonable but just set in different ways. That's certainly something that you could revisit if you think the differential between those two has gotten too high over time. It could be allocated differently, but this isn't a change, it's just moving language from one part to the other.
Thank you. I would like to take a look at that, and I think it would just be I would like to see each program pay for itself. Now, maybe that is too much of an administrative burden to keep track of, but I think I would like to hear staff weigh in on whether or not the business short-term rental is really driving the majority of the cost or not.
I can speak to a little bit of that, which is that, primarily the emphasis has been on the business short-term rentals, but as we've seen the rise of personal short-term rentals, and just to make sure that they are following the tenets of the program and the ordinance, we've seen an increased number of staff hours in time to ensure that the periods of rental are being followed, that they're being notified of staff. So I do see that there's going to be an increased enforcement cost, that probably should be reflected in the permit fee. And happily, while this is moving from the zoning ordinance to the regulatory, it's still being set by resolution, which is something that council could consider, is increasing the personal fees to better accommodate those enforcement actions.
But that would require a change in the language, because the language
Yes.
currently caps them at inspection only.
It would,
So
but thank you, Nick, that's exactly correct, because right now, the ordinance, which remains unmodified, does limit us to the $125 that we can only charge for personal. So as going forward, that's something to consider, is not only moving this to the appropriate ordinance, from zoning ordinance to the regulatory ordinance, Court of Ordinances, but to consider that we do modify the resolution to accommodate for those fees when we're ready to make that change.
Well, I know one of the comments we talked about in August was getting rid of that set personal short-term rental fee in the ordinance and doing it by resolution. So I think if we're going to do that, we might as well go all out and make sure that we're not tying our hands in what that fee should be if it's not going to cover the cost of administering the program. In my opinion, anyway.
Yes, sir.
Question. We know there's a whole lot of costs associated with the business short-term rentals. With personal, I'm trying to word this very carefully. There has been some abuse to people claiming something's a personal short-term rental when in fact it's a business. They're renting it all summer. So is it fair, it's a question, not a statement, that a lot of the time spent on personal short-term rentals is enforcement, trying to make sure they are in fact only being used as personal? So back to George's point, make it a real number. This is a question, could we be incurring a whole lot of extra expenses now with personal short-term rentals because they are in fact being used as a business? In other words, they're renting it a whole lot more than 28 days and 6 times. That's a question. Do you think that's happening?
I think that there's always going to be abuses with any program that you do, and the more you are being effective in following through and following up on those, more people understand that there's consequences for, and that people will be finding that they're stepping outside of the ordinance. Now, like with anything, if you see a number that are not being responsive, then we do our enforcement actions. But I do say that there's, I think in my chart here, that there's, I think, around 81. I'm sorry. 81 non-exempt personals. And there are 17 personal exempts. So we have a number that we're looking after. That's not, it's not the same amount as the 470. And they're also unique in how they have to do, because they have their 6 rental periods and they're not necessarily the entire year. So there are different challenges with them. We do have staff that are actively monitoring them, and that's more than what we've had in the past. We did add that second part-time person. So that is something that we are anticipating that we've built into that person's time. So if we find that we're not getting the kind of responsiveness that we need, then we'll have to adjust our numbers and our forecast there.
Okay.
And George, I had the same kind of comment. There should be some parity so that the personal side is not being subsidized. So I definitely think those, we need to capture all those costs, make it easier to set the fees. And again, I think when we envisioned this, it was a very kind of different, I think, than what it's kind of turned into. I mean, I think we visualized shorter time periods, fewer days, and I think it's turned into more than what we wanted, so.
Okay. All right.
Constraint.
Moving on to number 8, eliminate the requirement to post information in the first floor window. That seemed to be, we seem to have a majority of that. I guess revisiting that, does that still hit the mark there, or has considerations changed?
My opinion, I like to change it. I think we should have it in a window. One of the things we've talked about many times is the neighbors helping to enforce short-term rental compliance. Having it in a window makes it a whole lot easier for a neighbor to know if they have complied or not. We also have, I know it's not perfect, but we change the color, hopefully every year, but it's not perfect, as you told me today. But it is another indicator. The city website, to go on there and try to find out what exactly is happening in that home, for a lot of people, that's very difficult. And then the fourth final thing is people who rent the home, they should know walking in the stipulations, and one of them is a big issue, is occupancy, and we get a lot of complaints. You see, it's a house of 12, but you see 8 or 10 cars outside, so we know they're abusing it. I think also it'd be good for the renter, before they walk in that front door, to know what the city is required, so there can be no misunderstanding. So I think having it in the window helps. And I know I'd rather eliminate it. It's one more thing the city doesn't have to do, but I think that's one of those things we shouldn't eliminate. I think the residents have clearly told me since the last time I said eliminate it. I get inundated with people saying, no, put it back in the windows, so keep it in the window. So my opinion's changed on that.
I don't think they're needed.
So one of the things we talked about is people going up onto a porch or whatever, getting close enough to the posting to be able to read it. And I thought that seemed to be problematic. The fact that it is on the BSNA, I think that in combination with our new number helpline, I mean, even if someone doesn't know if it's a business short-term rental, if they call the hotline with the address, I mean, they would be able to tell if it's a rental issue or not. And if maybe it's being rented out and it doesn't have a certificate, the hotline would want to know that because they could then follow up on it. So I'm okay with eliminating the posting in the window.
Anybody else? Thoughts, ideas? Quiet.
I think just for the issue of trespassing, you eliminate it.
Yeah, and that was the concern we had, was a lot of issue of trespass and getting too close. I mean, maybe there's a system where there's something and it clues you in there's a rental, but you're not encouraging people to walk up and read it, whatever that looks like. But I mean, you know,
I know who all my neighbors are. They are borrowing my tools. You know, if a house becomes a short-term rental, I know it.
yeah.
And I know
understand
where,
that might
I
be
know where to go
another
look.
Just another option to discourage, like, well, if there's some sort of a sticker symbol, like, oh, it's a rental, okay, I can go online and look, but I'm not encouraging people to walk up, get to homes, look in windows, et cetera. I just don't want someone to get hurt, and, you know, I mean, there's.
You know, if you're a potential buyer of a piece of property too, a sticker or something like that might come in handy for a buyer that doesn't want to buy a home next to a short-term renter, for example, some kind of a flag or something that says this.
Whatever it is, like,
Might help, but how is the buyer going to know that? So I think you just complicate things.
yeah, just a thought to try best of both worlds.
Just one last point I hadn't thought of even before. If we believe a business short-term rental is in fact a business, and businesses all have to have licenses on the outside of the business, then why shouldn't a short-term rental business have to have some sort of permit or license on the outside? Sorry, you don't like somebody walking in your yard, they shouldn't really do it, they shouldn't go up on your porch. But you should have to have a sticker like any other business, because we're not looking at as a home dweller, we are looking at as a business. So treat it like a business and put a sticker or a permit on the window.
I think if you're like a restaurant, your certificates are going to be inside.
Inside, they are.
There's a
On
lot
the
of,
outside.
you're right, there's a lot of businesses with stickers outside too. And that's the only, we don't want to ask people to put a sticker on the inside of their home. And now residents wouldn't have any way, and I'm being facetious a little, they have no way of checking them. So the only recourse for the business short-term rentals on the outside.
It seems like we're kind of mixed on this one. Good thing we're leaving
Yep,
it for the
there you
next council
That's
to
right.
make final decisions.
Now we go.
All right, well, that'll be one to dig in next year. The last one I'm going to ask for Nick's, with a little bit of help here, is the 9 clarifying portions of both ordinances that have been historically confused by zoning administrators and the general public, largely by eliminating provisions that pertain to the implementation of the ordinances when they're first enacted, with references to specific dates in 2016, 2017, 2018 that have long passed.
Yeah, so you'll see a couple places in the red line, one of them being the way that maximum occupancy is calculated. The way it was written, and it was just kind of a product of how the ordinance was kind of enacted in pieces, there were some definitions and some other things that referred to kind of specific dates in 2016 and I think maybe 2017 that over time have gotten, I think, confused by the public. At the time they were passed, I think their intent was clear. It was compromises to kind of grandfather in residents who were doing certain things back when the ordinance was first adopted. The intent of those language changes, as well as some language changes in the zoning ordinance provisions about kind of the grandfathering provisions, are intended just for clarity. They're not intended to change the city's policy in any way, but they do remove those kind of dates that are now pretty long past and some terms that are maybe not necessarily needed. And I think, at least to me, express it in a clearer way. I think staff was happy with the rewording, but that's something that council can take a look at and see if they think it will help with clarity going forward. Yes.
For clarity's sake, this issue comes up everywhere I go. Could you once and for all publicly define what a land use is as best you can? Because I've asked and I get different answers. I think I know what it is, but I'd like to hear from you the legal definition of what a land use is as it pertains to short-term rentals. Is that a fair question?
I think so. So land use is an activity that under Michigan law can only be regulated through a zoning ordinance. And there's case law on kind of where land use stops and just ordinary activity starts. And it's kind of a tricky line in the context of short-term rentals, but it's basically the principal, well, even accessory uses, is essentially the zoning classification, the classification of the use of land for zoning purposes. When a short-term rental becomes the use of land, the government, there's what's called a vested right in that use, and the government can't force you to stop the use. Then the question becomes whether kind of ancillary activities like, using a fireplace or something, that probably doesn't arise to the level of a land use because it's not kind of the core function of how the land is used. It's just an activity that occurs on the land. And again, there's kind of case law to flesh out when one stops and the other starts. But when the zoning ordinance, as written in 2016, I believe, specified that a short-term rental, once it's granted, once the permit is granted, becomes a vested land use, the city can no longer kind of force that use to terminate. The owner can abandon it, and then it can become, the permit can go away in that fashion, but it can no longer just be kind of taken away by changing the zoning ordinance. Does that make sense?
That makes it clear to me. So if someone sells their home, again, and they have every right, if they have a short-term rental permit right now, they have every right legally to sell that home with that permit, and we can't stop it.
Yes.
But if someone wants to buy that home and they don't want it to be a short-term rental, the owner, the buyer, the buyer, then they can turn it down, and after a year, Kate said, then that's considered abandonment, and then it goes away. And then we have the choice of putting it into a lottery, or my suggestion, make it through attrition so the number goes down. I just want that to be clear because it is so confusing to a lot of people.
Yes, so once an owner elects to abandon a short-term rental use, the ordinance does not have to provide for that to pop up somewhere else. It could just provide for it to be extinguished. That's not how it currently reads, but because we have the cap and you can recalculate the cap and reissue new permits, it could be rewritten so that that permit just goes away.
And that you could call attrition. That's what I was trying to define. Okay, thank you.
Now, that kind of goes back to what Lisa's question was.
Yes.
The land use can transfer with the sale of the property, but the certificate would need to be reissued under the name of the new owner. So the certificate's not going to transfer per se, but the land use is going to transfer, but the city's not going to take that certificate away automatically because it's part of the land use that
I agree.
transfers.
And it's confusing. But if the person buying it doesn't want to make it a short-term rental, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but then after a year, it goes away.
Can, yeah.
It can if we decide to
The
put
right
that in
goes
the
away
ordinance.
unless it's provided
That's
by
the one
ordinance.
way we can bring the number, it's one of the ways we could bring the number of short-term rentals down without harming the person who has the permit and license, nor hurting anyone else. That would be an option from the person buying it, not to accept it. Okay.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about those proposed changes. The last one, as Nick just kind of mentioned, we've had some outlying dates in the ordinance that now that we're 5, 6, 7 years beyond that, that was the suggestion is to consider elimination. So those are the proposed changes that we thought were kind of in line with where we were at with August. And then, of course, just getting your feedback on where we were at with everything. So thank you for your input on that, and I understand that we'll be doing this again after the first of the year. Because both of our meetings are moved to a Tuesday, we'll probably be bringing the short-term rental report on the 16th, which would have been our 15th, the second meeting of the month. So, all right.
Sounds good. Perfect, thank you. Everybody good? Everybody's good. Perfect. Next, City Council is going to be asked to consider the following actions regarding a solar project that would directly connect and generate energy to the city's electric distribution system. Want to read all three? If we want, we can run them all at once. Sure. Approve Resolution 2023-35, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager and the city clerk to execute agreements associated with the solar project on the South Haven Township site with South Haven Affordable Solar LLC, subject to obtaining the USDA grant and upon final review by the Michigan Public Power Agency, the City of South Haven, and Legal Counsel, and the United States Department of Agriculture. Secondly, approve the proposed purchase power agreement with South Haven Affordable Solar LLC, and finally approve the proposed interconnection agreement with South Haven Affordable Solar LLC.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-35 as read by the mayor. I make a motion additionally to approve the proposed purchase of power agreement with South Haven Affordable Solar LLC and approve the proposed interconnection agreement with South Haven Affordable Solar LLC.
May I suggest maybe a modification to that amendment, that if it is approved, to have the city manager sign both those agreements?
And then I would like to amend my motion to say that the city manager has the authority to sign those agreements.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second the amended motion.
All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second. You want to walk us through all of it?
Absolutely. So between
Solar power.
myself, Nick, and of course our BPU member, George, and of course Quentin and Chris May here, we have been, we're bringing to you tonight a couple of items for your consideration, and there is a timeliness aspect to this. We brought to you the first idea about Solar America, which would be behind-the-meter solar generation, which would ultimately knock down some of the costs that every day, all of us pay with our electric bills. It would reduce the amount of money that we have to, the transmission cost that we have to pass on to those customers, which is all of us, that could be offset by this behind-the-meter generation. We brought to you Solar America. We brought to you the MPPA that came here and talked about what that all meant. We had the presentation by Steve Vandersloot. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. And we've brought that for you to, in the past. What's going on now is that the Solar America has put a kind of a marker in to be part of one of, I don't know, thousands of companies that would be part of this USDA PACE program. Basically, they would be part of the USDA grant to sell lower cost renewable energy to a power provider. And because they put in their, I guess, ticket quite early, and they have a lease agreement in the South Haven Township for parcel of land, they're ranked quite high. So they have a very good shot at getting this USDA grant program. And because of that, we are trying to push through this resolution and these two agreements, the power purchase agreement and the interconnection agreement, because we have to have these contracts substantively negotiated, not necessarily executed, in order for them to qualify for this USDA grant. So what we have here is a number of agreements plus the resolution that would ultimately set up how this solar array is connected to our system, what happens to it at the end of the PACE program, so this is after, if they are selected by the USDA, and then of course how much the power is going to be purchased by the city. And that has been also talked about at the BPU, and I know that George happened to be at the special meeting this Friday and may have some ideas to share with the council about the three agreements as well as MPPA and Solar America. So George, did you have anything you wanted to add about your special meeting?
Sure. As Kate mentioned, this is through the USDA, the PACE program, and it all started with the Inflation Reduction Act. And basically, this program is for locations that are 20,000 residents or less. So we fall into that category. It's specifically for that smaller size group of communities. One of the reasons I really am excited about this project is because we are very fortunate, just because Solar America had this lease agreement with this landowner in our distribution system prior to the announcement of this program. So it's just luck that we had that fall into place. And this is going to save us money in a couple ways. One is if you look at Exhibit A under the purchase power agreement, the contract rate is basically around $57 per megawatt hour. I brought some numbers from our meeting on Friday of what our cost of electricity was from 2022 and so far in 2023. It goes from basically so $57 per megawatt hour is like 5.7 cents per kilowatt hour, which is what our reports are in. And we've had as high as 13.3 cents per kilowatt hour and 6.4 cents per kilowatt hour. So the rate we're getting is significantly less than what we normally pay. In addition, because this is behind the meter generation, when our transmission rate is calculated, we won't have to factor in that generation so that generation that's being produced from our behind-the-meter solar farm, and that will reduce our transmission rate, which has been continually going up since we switched over to MPPA. So that's going to save us money in two different ways this project goes through. So I'm really excited about this. And MPPA, which is who basically negotiates and buys power for our utility, their expertise is with these agreements. They spend a lot of time working on it. I feel confident that even though it seems like we're rushing it through, that these agreements are in good shape to go forward.
Yeah, I agree. And the timing is, we don't really have a choice in the timing. This is when this money's becoming available. And just to clarify, maybe I don't want to goof this up, but I mean, as we had that presentation, I don't know if anyone was able to listen in on that, but it's calculated based on that total of peak usage, and so solar will drive it down, so we're paying less on that total. I mean, basically, it drives the rates down because we're reducing what is the overall usage during those peak times, so.
Moreover, we would be locked in for 25 years at this rate. The market is volatile, and even though we're buying our power 5 years into the future, we have to acknowledge that those rates are being adjusted quite a bit, and it's a volatile market. So this would lock us in with this rate for them.
And this was an identified council priority as well.
Yeah. One of the questions was, how long do these solar panels last? They last for 35 years. And so the 25-year purchase power agreement is reasonable.
Oh.
And this is a relatively small percentage of our total generation, so we're not making a significant impact. And I think our proposed generation from the solar farm is like 40 megawatts maybe. I'm trying to go back and see what it was. But there was a question about the Palisades plant. That's 800 megawatts.
Yeah,
That's not
even the same.
That's pretty insignificant to what the Palisades, and it's not that the two don't make any difference because everything goes on the grid, and it's not, one doesn't impact the other.
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
Oh, can I, just one more thing I
Please,
thought of.
go
So
ahead.
the city doesn't really have a lot of risk involved with this because the amount that we have to invest to our infrastructure to allow this is factored into the purchase power agreement. So that money that we'll be spending is all factored in the purchase power agreement, and that's part of that $57 per megawatt hour that we have to pay, so.
And if the costs are greater, I believe it drives the rate down, is my understanding. So if the city, for unexpected reason, has to spend more on the connection point, then it drives the rate down, I think.
So we have been working on this with MPPA and also with our utility attorney, our attorneys that review the utility costs, or the utility contract, Dickinson Wright. So we've been doing quite a bit of documents going back and forth. So this has been highly vetted, highly reviewed, and of course, the BPU also reviewed this. They did recommend this at their last meeting on December 1st. We did have one person who did object to it, but this is being recommended by the BPU. If you'd like to walk through the interconnection or the power purchase agreement, City Attorney Curcio has been working with Dickinson Wright because they could not be here tonight. We can walk through any of your questions.
I'm good. Everybody else good? I think we've been talking about this for quite a few months, so go on. If we're good, we've got a motion, we've got a second to approve Resolution 2023-35, purchase power and interconnection agreements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Next, City Council is going to be asked to provide guidance on the next steps regarding the engagement for general legal services.
I think I would like to make a motion to table this item. We had the interviews, and we haven't really had time to process, make a list of pros and cons yet. So I'd like to just kind of hold on to this. And maybe you guys want to as well.
Have a second? Anybody else?
I'll second.
Discussion? Everybody game to wait? Wait maybe get feedback to Kate, and then we'll bring it back.
Okay. So you're going to table till the next meeting?
Table to the next meeting? Okay, let's do
Okay.
that.
Do we need to vote on that or anything? I'm good with it, but.
Yeah, let's vote on
I
it.
mean, I made a motion.
Yeah, there was a motion and a second, so, motion
Yep.
second, to table this to the next meeting.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, let's wait on that one. All right, next, public comments for items that were not on the agenda tonight. So if there's anything we didn't discuss you'd like to chat about, come on up, state your name and address, you'll have up to 5 minutes. Going once, going twice.
Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. Real quickly, I want to correct my previous statement. I meant Mary Hosley. Said Mary Ozier, I believe.
We knew what you meant.
You knew what I meant, right?
But I'm sure Mary
It's been
appreciates
a while.
it.
I missed a few meetings, so I have to get recalibrated. Been busy with the church. But just a quick statement or comment. I gotta say that I was a little disappointed tonight, in my opinion, just my humble opinion. It was always nice to be back to see these wonderful faces. I just feel like item number 12, listening to you all discuss.
Yeah,
This is on the agenda.
we've already been there.
I'm not even going to, I'm just, my opinion. It's not, I'm
We've
not
already
getting
been
into
there.
it.
It was on the
I'm not getting into it. I'm not getting into it. I'm just saying that, what I heard tonight was, disappointing in a way because it sounds as if this council, again, is not hearing the voices of the residents, in my opinion. It just reassured me that this council still struggles to hear what the community, the residents really want in regards to STRs. And that was very discouraging and frankly a little offensive to hear one council person suggest the reason going forward is because he didn't want to kick the can down the road. For 4 years, if not more, I could be off.
It was on the agenda.
You've been kicking the can down the road.
All right, Joe, wrap up.
So, I'm not here to argue. I'm just giving my opinion, Mayor, that's all.
I get that.
I'm not
We've
the
been there.
bad guy. I'm just here. I just said, to me, I was a little offended by that statement. And I think I have the right to say when I'm offended. But again, on a high note, I want to congratulate those that were elected, and I am looking forward to a new year. The Lord say the same, I'll be around, and hopefully we'll see some great progress going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. All right. Get enough to go? No. All right.
Reverend Cobbs.
Oh,
Aaron Cobb, 914 Center Street. And I just want to correct one thing about the short-term rental, that the portion of the short-term rental, that I heard that, if you had a portion of short-term rental, you could make rent many times you want to and get away with it.
Yeah.
That is not so. I misunderstood my short-term rental order when I got it. I read it. I was thinking I could rent 28 days instead of 6 days of, 6 times of 28 days. After my 7th time, I got a letter, don't rent anymore. And I said, I'm booked one more time. But she said, you can't rent. I said, well, I'm booked. I don't want to get a bad reference. And she said, okay, she just take it off. So they know
Got you to wrap up.
if you go over, if you got a portion of them, you can rent many times you want to. That I know for a fact.
Again, anybody else on items not on the agenda means short-term rental, anything that was not on the agenda. Anybody else? Nothing else, all right. City manager comments.
Okay, Mayor, I do have a few items for us. So tonight, I wanted to just remind everyone that December 11th, next Monday, from noon to 1 p.m., City Council will be closed just for that 1 hour. We'll be having our holiday luncheon. We wanted to allow for our frontline workers to come on down and have lunch with us. So for that 1 hour next Monday, we will be closed, but we'll be reopened at 1 o'clock. City Hall, I beg your pardon. City Hall will be closed. Of course, Public Works always closes around the noon hour anyway, but City Hall will be closed. We'll have notices on the door. Did want to let everyone know, the lobby at the police fire station is closed starting today and will be closing for the rest of the week. We hope it would be open earlier, but we are taking that one large window and breaking it into 2 windows, one at a lower level so that it can be ADA compliant. So that's what's being done over there. We did release an updated press release, if you will, on our ice rink. I know many people are waiting to see when that can open. We did have some changes going on with the management company. Also, our rental office had a bit of a leak. It was kind of letting on all that water. So we have got that sorted out. We're now waiting for the new chiller to arrive. We were initially told when we bought it last year, that's the lead time, is that it would not be here until after Christmas. We've received updated information that will be here December 5th, and they're hoping to have it all hooked up by the 12th. And then at that point, we have to just make some ice. So at that point, depending on when the ice would be made, we would be able to open that ice rink. And of course, we are very much anticipating to get that open for winter break, so those kids can come on down there. So we've got the ice rink update up on our website for the press release, and hope to have more information as we get the chiller here and get sorted out. I did also want to thank lastly to all of council members for their actions tonight at the 5 p.m. special session, and thank you very much to the 4 firms that came and interviewed with us. Those are my comments.
Wonderful, thank you. Questions for Kate? How's the fire pit coming?
Fire pit, I believe it's in the same situation where it has been, where we're waiting on a few components that are pretty critical for the interior. So if I have an update, I will send that out with council.
Sounds good. Nice to get it done by Christmas. How about council comments? I'll start on my left. Good evening.
I feel so special. You keep saying the left today. First, I want to say thank you. I hadn't had a chance to thank everyone in Ward 1 who voted for me. So I wanted to personally say thank you for your vote of confidence again, and I'm excited to serve you again for the next couple of years. And I believe Mr. Arnold said we have 13 more days?
School days, yeah.
13 more school days, and we get a long break. Yay. Those are my comments.
Looking forward to the next city council meeting for several reasons, and looking forward to the first of the year for once that the city council won't have a majority of bald guys on it, probably. So.
Yay.
But that's all I have for tonight.
You didn't say you were going to miss me.
He's saving that for the last thing.
Yes, he's wait for that.
My comment, there's something new happening at the high school. This Thursday, Katie Hilliard in the choir department is doing a sing-along. It's Thursday night at 7, so check that out. And then I heard the Collage concert is the 20th. Get your tickets early. They sell out quick.
If you can.
Yeah,
if you
they sell
can.
out quick. 2 shows and they sell out
luck.
really quick. Those are my comments.
Excellent. Very good.
So I'm going to say this now because I don't want to pile on too much at the next meeting, but I want to thank Councilmember Schlock for his many years of service on City Council. I've learned a lot from you, Steve.
Thank you.
I appreciate your wisdom and your insights, and thank you for your service. You're going to be missed.
And I would also, Steve, like to thank you, because I like, especially those areas where you have expertise that I don't, so I like listening to you, and I'll miss your input. I just want to make a nice comment about the senior services. That building is beautiful. They have great meals where the seniors can come and talk and congregate, and I have just found it to be an uplifting place to go. And I've just taken lessons on pickleball, so now I play pickleball there, so something else I can do. But I think we're just very, very fortunate to have that in our town, and it's a great facility and a great manager of the facility. Thanks.
Very good. All right. Christmas lights look great downtown. I would just say that. Thanks to the staff and the leaf picker-upper trucker because they're out a lot. It's always amazing. I feel like I put leaves out and they show up right after I'm putting them out there. So I'm so happy. So thanks to their work. And then the ice rink, I will volunteer to take the first lap when it's ready. I'll check it
Same
for you.
Bodie.
I'm happy to, I'll test it for you. So on that note, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
South Haven High School is a trailblazer in innovative learning opportunities along the lakeshore. Our students are challenged at all levels and graduate ready to solve tomorrow's problems, having benefited from a nationally recognized, comprehensive curriculum with a dedicated and caring staff and transformational learning spaces. Our students learn to work collaboratively and pursue excellence at the newly renovated 21st century style learning environment that supplies cutting-edge spaces. Our students are exposed to a variety of career paths through state-of-the-art programming such as Design and Create in the Fab Lab, graphic design, media production, and numerous online courses. Our students thrive in award-winning bands, orchestras, and choirs, a globally competitive robotics team, and numerous extracurriculars. They also take college-level courses for credit through dual enrollment. Our students explore their passions, engage in project-based learning, and grow as lifelong learners. At South Haven High School, we explore new horizons and create paths